Hey there and welcome to Life Noggin. It's me. From the dawn of man, humans have used fire for cooking, warmth, and protection from wild animals. But have you ever wondered who discovered fire? Like if it was one person who was like, holy cow, wood plus rock equals awesomeness. Or maybe it was a bunch of cave people who all at once figured out that fire could be useful. Well, it turns out that both of these scenarios are wrong. Fire was not discovered on just one fateful day by a single person or even a small group of people. It took millions of hominins over hundreds of thousands of evidence left behind at various archaeological sites suggests that it was a process that occurred gradually over time. So join us today as we talk about the very long day that fire was discovered. Controlling fire is one of the most important steps in the advancement of humankind. Before the advent of fire, the food that early humans ate had to be chopped up into small pieces because they didn't have the technology to cook larger chunks. As a result, their jaws and teeth needed to be strong enough to bite through meat and plants. Now, this wouldn't have been an issue for species of humans with larger brains that still exist today. After all, we have jaws of steel. But our ancestors were much more ape-like, and while they did walk upright, their brains were only about 1/3 the size of ours, and they had much smaller bodies. They were also likely covered in body hair to keep them warm in cold climates. When the ability to cook food became available, though, all of that began to change. Food cooked over a fire is softer and easier to eat, so a smaller jaw and teeth would suffice. The softer diet may have also been a contributing factor to the decrease in body hair, too, since there wouldn't have been as much need for insulation. However, those changes didn't happen overnight. Even after humans began cooking their food, it would take thousands of years for physical adaptations to occur. This is evidenced by the Homo erectus species that lived between 1.8 million and 117,000 years ago. Their brains were larger than earlier human species, but their bodies were still ape-like and covered in body hair. This is why it's unlikely that fire was discovered on just one day by a small group of primitive humans. For fire to have such an immediate impact on the human species, it would have needed to be around for much longer. But where did fire come from? And how did early humans first learn to use it? Before we get into exactly how fire was harnessed, let's take a moment to answer the question, what is fire? In its simplest terms, fire is the result of a combustion reaction. This means that one substance reacts chemically with another, usually oxygen, to produce a new substance and release energy in the form of heat and light. Each type of fuel has an ignition temperature, which is the minimum temperature required to start the combustion reaction. For example, the ignition temperature of paper is around 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 232 degrees Celsius, whereas the ignition temperature of wood is closer to 900 degrees Fahrenheit or 475 degrees Celsius. Now, we don't know the exact ignition source that early humans used to start fires, but it's likely that they used natural sources such as lightning strikes or volcanic activity to get the ball rolling. Both of these sources of ignition would have been hot enough to ignite any dry vegetation. However, that doesn't mean that humans could just set off a fire whenever they wanted to. There also had to be a way to contain and control the blaze in order to harness its power. There's a myth that early humans figured out how to start fires by rubbing two sticks together. And while this is certainly possible, scientists believe that early humans likely created fire by using a bow and drill. This technique consists of creating friction by rotating a drill bit back and forth inside a fire saw made of a hollowed-out piece of wood. Some researchers believe that early humans may have gotten the idea for the bow and drill method by observing the way that sticks snap when they're hit with a sharp rock. As the stick snaps, it spins rapidly, creating friction that can cause the end of the stick to flare up and catch on fire. Early humans could then take advantage of this by using a sharp rock to snap a notched stick and ignite a piece of tinder with the ember that flew off the other. Of course, starting a fire is useless without something to burn. And this is where the process of gathering fuel comes in. Scientists think that the first fuels that humans burned were things like grass, leaves, bark, and fruit. These items were easy to collect and ignited easily. Over time, humans learned how to use more durable types of fuel like wood. Using these materials would have allowed humans to cook a wider variety of foods. Bones found near ancient fire pits indicate that early humans were able to cook small animals whole, saving them the trouble of chewing through larger pieces of meat. They also learned to cook tough vegetables and roots, which would have provided them with much-needed nutrients. But humans weren't just using fire for food. Another benefit of fire is that it kept predators away. Wild animals generally avoid areas with fire, so it served as a great defense mechanism for humans. Fire may have also scared off some of the competition for food. Humans weren't the only omnivores during the Pleistocene epoch, which lasted from 2.6 million to 11,700 years ago. During this time, there were many other species of humans and human-like creatures roaming the earth, including Neanderthals, Denisovans, and Homo habilis. All of these hominins were physically stronger than modern humans, but they went extinct, likely due to a combination of factors, one of which may have been fire. Now, we haven't actually found any direct evidence that these other hominins knew how to use fire, but given that they had larger bodies and stronger jaws, it seems likely that they had similar dietary needs as humans. If they didn't have access to cooked food, their jaws and teeth may have been a hindrance rather than a benefit. Ultimately, it's believed that the discovery of fire was a gradual process that occurred over millions of years. Different hominin species found different uses for it, and it wasn't until Homo sapiens came along that humans really started to harness its power. We know this because fireplaces discovered at archaeological sites belonging to other species of hominin do not seem to show much evidence of controlled fires. Most of them appear to have been used primarily for burning trash or for heating rocks that were then used for other purposes. Controlled fires would have required tending and maintenance to keep the flames going, so it's likely that the hominins who used these hearths simply didn't have the time or resources to do so. Fireplaces used by Homo sapiens, however, tell a different story. For example, the Wonderwork Cave in South Africa contains evidence of a controlled fire that was used by humans as far back as 1 million years ago. The oldest undisputed evidence of fire comes from Chesil Beach in England. Here, stone tools and animal bones found at the site show evidence of burning, and some of the bones have burn marks that are consistent with the use of a fire saw. This suggests that humans may have arrived at the bow and drill method much earlier than previously thought. As humans spread across the globe, they brought their love of fire with them. In fact, evidence of fire has been found at almost every continent on Earth. This shows that humans quickly learned the benefits of fire and sought to bring it with them wherever they went. While we may never know exactly how fire was discovered, the evidence that we have uncovered paints a fascinating picture of how humans evolved and adapted to their environment. What's clear is that fire played a critical role in the development of humankind. Without it, we may not be where we are today. So do you know any obscure history facts? Share them with us in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, this has been your host. Don't forget to keep on thinking.